All right, so we have one person in the room here, sole person, so thank you for joining here, and everyone on the line, thank you for taking time of your day to join us as well. So I'll make this quick. My name is Ben Jordan. I'm from Great Castle Security. We're a cybersecurity consulting firm here. We've been helping the college here with a number of different security initiatives. So today, this session, what we're going to be talking about is really Cybersecurity 101 when it comes to what you should know about cybersecurity and protecting information here at the college or your own information as well. We'll go through best practices. Keep in mind that we will be sharing, or the college will be sharing these slides with everyone and posting them on the intranet page. So don't feel like you have to take down notes the entire time, because we'll make sure that this information, or that Bill and Peter make sure that this information gets posted for you all as well. So one thing that we always like to start off here with is a fun little video. So we're going to jump right in, and it is about passwords.
So back to this this hack, this Equifax hack. I mentioned earlier, they may have compromised the information of 143 million Americans, which is a lot of Americans. So in light of this, as a service to the public, we've actually done this before, and it's very effective. We asked people who are passing by our theater today what password they use to protect their personal information. And pay attention, please, because there are a lot of important tips to be shared here.
We are talking to people about the cybersecurity breach at Equifax, and in light of that, we're asking people how secure their internet passwords are. What do you use for an internet password?
You know, I usually stick to my last name. That's probably not the best thing to do, but I usually stick to my last name, a few digits, maybe like a hashtag or something, or...
How do you spell your last name?
Walker.
Walker?
Yeah.
W-A-L-K-E-R?
Yeah.
And then just a few numbers?
Yeah, I probably should have told you that.
And then a hashtag.
Yeah.
The numbers, like, what do you use, like your birthday or something, your area code?
Yeah, usually like, my birthday,
How old are you?
21.
21? What day you born?
November. No, the day, sorry, the 29th.
29th of November? 11/29/95.
I probably shouldn't say that, but...
That's okay.
Yeah.
How strong is your internet password? Strong. What sort of things do you use?
Capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, characters, everything.
What's the current password you're using?
I don't really want to tell the current password that I'm using, to be honest.
You think I'm a hacker?
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, I guess, you know, like 63XJ9 hat symbol, @ symbol, basically all characters, pretty random assortment, and I just try to memorize.
Do you use that one?
Yes.
Thank you. What is your internet password that you use for your email?
In and out 2017.
That was easy.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
My internet password is capital W @ TER capital B 0 NG water bong.
Yeah, we probably got that.
My internet password is okay.
Yeah.
Mila for what? MILR64.
Well, that's nice. Now Americans can hack into a Russian website. No,
So, funny but scary, right?
Yeah.
People just handing away their passwords to complete strangers while on the street, and we'll talk about passwords here in a little bit. Moving on here, just briefly thinking about protecting, or a step to protect more of your personal information, is freezing your credit, something that you can do to stop someone from potentially opening a new line of credit in your name. Unfortunately, as we know, most people's information this day and age has been involved in some type of data breach, which means in many cases people's social security numbers have been impacted, which means people can open accounts using your personal information. So this is a step that you can take. You have to reach out to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, the 3 credit bureaus, to have this done. It is free to do. You can always unfreeze your credit at any time if you do need to have access to your credit line, but something to consider doing.
What were the three again?
Yep, TransUnion,
TransUnion.
Experian,
Yep.
and Equifax.
Thank you.
Yep. And we have the picture there of Equifax on there, right? Because they're the ones that had the giant breach that impacted probably half of Americans' information. So something to consider doing. Something else here is getting an annual copy of your credit report. This is free. And it's just good to take a look through it and make sure there's nothing in your credit report that you don't recognize, that in the event that somebody had stolen your identity and tried to open up new accounts or were successful in doing so, you may not have been notified of it, right? So it's always just kind of something to do on an annual basis to get in the rhythm of. So as we go through this, something to keep in mind is, yes, we'll be talking about security, but we also will be talking about instances of privacy, right? And they're not necessarily the same thing. Privacy, when we're talking about privacy, we're talking about who has access to our information, what's being done with our information, who could view our information, right? So in many times, when you go on a website, they not only have their terms of use, but they have their privacy policy. So depending on the organization that you're looking to maybe use for a service, you may want to actually read their privacy policy and say, what are they doing with my information if I'm going to give it to them? Next, what we'll be talking about is security, right? So those are, how are they actually protecting my information, or how can I better protect my information to keep my privacy, right? So in this day and age, with all of our social media and other forms and services out there, people have kind of, as a society, we've kind of downgraded what we expect out of privacy, right? But it is really something that we should consider, and it should be something on everybody's mind in this day and age with so much of our data being in so many places. So as I talk through these different best practice areas, think of it as layers of security, right? So there's not just a one-size-fits-all tool that you can do to protect your device or to protect your information. I'm going to be walking through a series of different things and techniques and recommendations here on how to better protect your information, or how to help better protect the college as well. Because, keep in mind, when it comes to the college here, we're protecting and trying to protect and secure a lot of information here, right? Student information, employee information, your own information, and then there's just a lot of college institutional data here that we're trying to keep secured. We'll be talking about the different steps here of how to help better protect the college, and when it comes to your own information, and whether it is at home or at work. We all have a duty to have a security mindset here at work. So let's talk about staying secure at work. So we always, as I was just saying, security is everyone's responsibility, right? Everybody here uses different devices, has access to different types of data. Well, sure, IT may be able to help protect and put controls in place, but at the end of the day, it's up to the end user to also have a security mindset and make sure that we're handling data to the best that we can, or to the best that we know. And that's why we have certain policies and procedures in place to hopefully help better protect data that is being stored here on campus. So when talking about information and cybersecurity, many times we forget about the physical aspect of it. Well, some of those aspects may be, first of all, just locking your workstation. So were you just at your computer?
Yes.
Did you lock your computer before you walked away?
I did.
You did, great. But there are times when people don't, right? They get up, they leave for lunch, their computer is totally unlocked. Sure, there may be a 15-minute, 30-minute timeout on it, but if somebody sits down at that computer before it locks out, they can view all that information that's on that computer screen. Not everybody here has the same privileges to the same information, and that may be even so for your own department. There may be people in your department who have access to different information than you do, because access is given on a need-to-know basis, right? So it's important that we are locking our workstations. When it comes to paper documents, that we're securing them properly in cabinets or in desks, and then when we need to dispose of those documents, that they're going in shred bins. They're not just being tossed in the garbage. Shoulder surfing, this is when somebody's looking potentially over your shoulder as you're viewing confidential information, or even when you're typing in information into your passwords in, right? I'm sure we have people here who travel for work and take laptops with them, and that is a big risk. If you're in a public area and you have information up on your screen, who else around you can see that? Go walk around an airport. Next time you're at an airport, go walk around and see how much information you can see on people's screens, because they're doing work, not paying attention, have their headphones in, and you can see all this information, right? So it's about having that situational awareness as well. And then tailgating, we have areas that you have to use key cards, right, to get into based on it's a restricted area. Tailgating is you enter an area that's access restricted, you use your key card to get in, and before the door shuts, somebody grabs the door behind you and walks in without having to use their ID badge to get in. So it's, again, checking behind you to make sure that somebody that you don't recognize isn't going to grab that door and hold it open to get into an area that they shouldn't be. And at the end of the day, if you see something, say something. So now we're going to jump into passwords. So before we deep dive into passwords here, do you recognize what this picture is from?
Where it's from?
Yeah, do you recognize where this is from, where it was taken? And it happened a couple years ago. It was all over the news. It happened in the U.S., not the mainland United States. That gives you a hint.
Look at his shirt. Oh, this is the scare.
The scare, right.
From
So in
Hawaii.
Hawaii, so this is the command center from that Hawaii missile scare. What do you think is wrong with this picture? And there's a couple things.
Well, you can zoom in probably on the information on the computer.
Yeah, so the computer screens are left unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
His badge.
His ID badge is showing.
Yeah.
There's one more key thing here. And we're talking about passwords.
Password. I don't know.
What do you think?
I know you guys would never do this.
Are they taped up on the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
See that sticky note?
Yeah. Probably
Oh, look,
Yeah.
it had a password taped to it.
Yeah.
So this is something that we know happens, but we don't want to see this, right? Because you're telling the whole world that here's my password, and we should be treating passwords like how we treat cash, right? We don't just leave cash out on our desks.
Right.
We keep it secured in our wallet. So you want to keep your password secured as well. So
Somebody's using Internet Explorer.
Yeah, and that's another thing, right? He's using Internet Explorer as well. He's got Chrome open too.
Yeah,
so.
he's got more than one.
We'll give him a little credit there for using Chrome. So jumping in here, which password here is the strongest?
I would have to say A.
A. Do you both agree on A? Anyone think it's B? Well, I'll tell you.
C.
C. The answer is B. Why is it B? Because it's longer. The longer your password is, the stronger your password is. So, A has lowercase, uppercase, number, special characters. B also has uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and numbers, right? But because it's a longer password, it's a stronger password. So now the recommendation out there by security governing bodies is, hey, let's make passwords longer rather than shorter, but people should maybe think about using passphrases in their, as their password. This may also help allow people to remember their password a little bit easier. Because passwords like A, people create them, and then either they write them down because they can never remember them, or every time they go to log in, they click on forgot password because they can't remember what password they made. Right? So passwords like A, maybe it's like a passphrase. I'm going to show you one way to create, often a question we get, well, how do I create a longer password? You're telling me not to use my name, not to use my date of birth, anything like that in my password. How do I create a longer password? Well, this is one example. Now, I'll be right up front. This is one example that potentially you could use. You don't have to use. It's not a perfect system because once you have to change your password, now you have to change your convention of how you created that password. You shouldn't be reusing the same convention over and over. And then there's websites that may restrict you on how long of a password you can make, right? But this is just an example of how to create a longer password potentially. Again, it's not perfect, but passwords aren't either. So you can pick 3 random words, right? So I just picked 3 random words, right? This is how you could start. Well, I log into an account, I need to create a password. Well, I'm going to pick 3 random words. After that, I'm going to remove the spaces between the words, right? Because some websites you can't have spaces. So I'm going to use an underscore between the second and third word instead of a space. After that, I'm going to say you're for the first time making a password for Netflix. In the sake of this example, we'll just say, okay, Netflix, right? After that, so that's your 4th word. Now after that, you're going to substitute with special characters and numbers. So on Netflix, the last word, whatever you may choose, I changed the E to a 3 and the I to an exclamation mark. So now you have a long and strong password that's built on a passphrase. Now, again, we don't necessarily like people to use the same variation of the passwords, so you may have to change up this variation, change up the words that you use. Again, it's not perfect, and this is meant to just be an example of how you can create a long and strong password. Again, you could do, some people do passphrases, right? So they use potentially a title of a book or a quote from a song or something like that. Or maybe they just, again, pick 3 random words that they like to use. I'm a component of using, more of a 3 random words or a passphrase there. And then that's your password. Something else to consider if you don't already use it is called 2-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. You may already be using this for financial accounts. Typically, banking accounts will have this. Most email providers now have multi-factor or some form of it, and the same with social media, things like that. So what is 2-factor or multi-factor authentication? Well, it's when you log in with your username and password. Before you actually get into your account, it says, please enter a 6-digit code. That 6-digit code is usually sent to you in a text message. Sometimes you get a phone call, or some people have an app on their phone, like Authenticator here, made by Google, that will generate that 6-digit code for you. Now, you have to link your account to Google Authenticator to actually work. However, this is an example of 2-factor authentication. So, just some key points here to remember before we move on about passwords is we don't want you reusing that same password, right? Password should be unique for all of your accounts. Yes, that is a pain in the butt, but if you reuse that one password or variations of it and it gets compromised, well, now you're making it that much easier for some cyber criminal to breach your accounts because you've reused the same password. Longer passwords are stronger. Keep them confidential. Look, we know people are still writing down passwords and keeping them in some notebook. If you're going to do that, at least keep that notebook locked and secured somewhere, right? Don't carry it around in your bag. If you lose that bag or you leave behind that notebook, well, now somebody has all of your passwords. Don't use personal information, and then where possible, use multi-factor authentication. Now, this website here, turnon2fa.com, it's a nice little website you can go to and say you can browse to see what other websites will have 2-factor authentication available. So it's a search engine that will search and tell you if other accounts have 2-factor available. Again, these slides will be shared with you at the end of this presentation or posted on the CCRI intranet. So if you need to go back and look at these key points, they will be there. So something to think about, multi-factor authentication. If it's one thing you're going to go back and do today, I would say go see if you can turn on multi-factor authentication for your accounts. Where we've seen many instances where somebody had multi-factor authentication turned on for their account would have never been breached in the first place. Now, I told you that we should be creating longer and stronger passwords, right? Well, now it's like, well, how do you expect me to remember a 12 to 15 character password now? Well, something that you could consider is using a password manager. So a password manager is a piece of software that you can download onto your phone, onto your computer. Some of them are just local to that device. Some of them are cloud-based. This is example here is LastPass. So what it does is it stores all of your passwords for all of your accounts in one place. You only then have to remember one master password to get into your password manager, and that password typically has to be at least 15 characters. You then use that password to get into your password manager where you save all your different accounts in there, and then you can copy and paste your passwords into your account as you log in. Now, are there risks to this? Yes. One risk is, well, if you forget your master password to your password manager, you're not going to get back in. So now you're going to have to go and set up a new account, or you're going to have to reset all of your passwords in some way. Next thing is, well, it's a piece of software. Well, as we know, software can have security risks, right? So that's a risk you may be willing to take of saying, well, I trust this software company, I hope that it's secure and they're doing the right thing, right? But that is a risk. If something happens maybe to this password manager, well, could somebody have access to all of your passwords? Yes. If somebody potentially, if you still end up using a really weak password convention in some way, well, could someone get in your password manager? Maybe, right? So there are some risks to this, but it may be easier. One, this is a convenience thing because you don't have to be writing them down. You can have them stored on your device, and then you have your device locked. So now you have that other layer of security built in. And as you update your passwords, in many cases, depending on the type of access, it will automatically update your account. So if you log in on your computer into your password manager, that password's already updated on that device, right? So there are some convenience factors for it as well. So I wouldn't say I'd recommend a specific one, but there's a lot of them out there these days, so do your research. Many of them are free still. Security questions. So we still have to sometimes fill in the security questions for our login process, or maybe to recover our password, or to reset our password. Well, we have all these questions. Many of these questions could be publicly available information, right? Or somebody, if they knew enough about you, could guess what your question is. So what we say is, well, nobody says that you have to answer these truthfully. And so other thing, you could come up with a naming convention as well for your password questions or your security questions. So, for example, what is the name of your first pet? So say the name of your first pet is Daisy, right? So instead of just having the answer as Daisy, you could put another keyword in front of Daisy, say chocolate. So your keyword for all of your answers could be chocolate and then whatever the name, what the actual answer is. So if somebody tries to guess the name of your first pet and they know that your pet's name is Daisy and they type in Daisy, it's not going to actually be right. It technically is right because that's your dog's name, but because they don't know your keyword that you used in it or after it, they're not going to be able to guess those. So something just to consider. So talking about email security. So the biggest thing that the large thing that we're going to talk about here is phishing. So phishing is a huge target to higher education. People here get phishing emails all the time. They may look like they're coming from a coworker. They may look like they're coming from your boss, the president of the college, right? Because it's very easy to spoof an email address to make it look like it's coming from somebody that you know. So the biggest thing when it comes to email is slow down. Read the email slowly. Not just the sender name, but the email address of who it actually is from, right? So it may say the president's name of the college, but then all of a sudden it says @gmail.com or @AOL.com. Well, clearly that's not coming from him, right? Or her, I should say. So it's all about slowing down when it comes to email. Looking at links. Are there links or attachments to the email? If there's a link in the email and you think it's suspicious, don't just click on it, right? Hover your cursor over the link, and it'll show you the web address of where it's actually bringing you. So here's one that we actually got at Grey Castle. We use Zoom. Have you heard of Zoom for web conferencing? Well, we use Zoom. Somebody sent us an email to make it seem like it's coming from Zoom. Clearly it's not. It says itscom.net. And then when you hover your cursor over the link, you can see it's not bringing us to Zoom at all, right? So this was a phishing email that we got. And they may have language in there that tries to catch your attention, like urgent, or your account's going to be locked or deactivated, or fraud has been detected on your account, right? So they may use keywords to draw you in and think there's something actually wrong with your account, and then it causes people to rush and not slow down and read that email, because they're like, oh my gosh, my Netflix account has been compromised, and it wasn't at all. Here's another example of a phishing email, right? It uses the PayPal logo. It uses kind of the form or the template of a PayPal email. However, you hover your cursor over the view statement link there, and you can see, sure, it says paypal.com, but it says contactsupport.com. So it's actually not bringing you to PayPal at all. But if someone clicks on this, not slowing down and reading the email, this looks very legitimate, like it could be the PayPal website. Again, if you go up top and read the email or the web address there, it doesn't have HTTPS. It says paypal.com, but again, it says contactsupport.com. So it's actually this contactsupport.com page that you're on. So if you click on a link by accident and you're redirected to a web page, well, one, that you should close back out and not proceed any further, but two, look at the web address as well. Here's a Netflix one. So looks like it uses the Netflix logo. It uses language, again, here saying that you need to update your billing information, verify your account information. However, you hover your cursor over this link again, and it says My Netflix-ACC, right? So again, example of a phishing email. Someone clicked on this. Sure, looks like it could belong to Netflix, but it doesn't. And then if they went even further and someone entered their credentials, well, they would just compromise that, and now they compromise potentially personal information. Here's another one. If you have a Google account, you may get a phishing email that says, hey, a new device connected to your account. And you're like, well, I didn't connect the device to my account. So that automatically kind of creates alarm with people. They click on that link. It brings them to a page that looks like it belongs to Google, and it actually is not the Google website at all. Another one, now, we may be targeted through text messages. Have you ever gotten a phishing message through a text message before? So this is another avenue that you could be targeted. So now that we can access the internet through our phones, you could get text messages that say, hey, there's something wrong with your PayPal account or something wrong with your bank account. Click here to log in, right? And what it's doing is trying to steal your credentials so then they can get into your account. So when it comes to email security, like I said, slow down when it comes to email. Take 10 more seconds to read through that email, and if you're not sure that it's legit, especially here at work, call the help desk or forward it to the help desk and ask them, hey, is this a legitimate email? But also, don't click on any links or attachments without verifying the sender address, right? That right there might be the red flag that you know it's phishing, because again, it may look like it's coming from a coworker, but then you read the email address and it says at AOL or at email.com or something like that. Maybe there is issues with the grammar or spelling within the email, or potentially there's links that just automatically look bogus altogether, or they're asking. Sometimes they don't have links or attachments in them, right? They may try to create a dialogue. So you may get an email and it says, hey, can you help me out with something, right? And somebody thinking it's a coworker is like, oh, sure. So they respond back, yeah, what can I help you out with? And the cybercriminal emails back, well, I'm in a meeting right now, but can you pull this information for me? Or can you go out and we're going to have a fundraiser, and can you go buy some iTunes gift cards, right? That's a big one. And then potentially, if someone's not paying attention, could end up sending that cybercriminal personal information or confidential information, or somebody actually goes out and buys gift cards and then gives them the codes through email. So those are avenues too. It might not be a link or an attachment. It might be a dialogue they try to create with you. Never should be sending confidential or sensitive email or information through email. And then again, where possible, use multi-factor. Talking about web security here. So, few things. Avoid saving your passwords in browser. Why? Well, if somebody sits down at your computer and they open up your web browser and you've just saved all of your passwords in that web browser, when they open up your web browser and say go to Amazon.com, well, maybe they can get right into your account, right? So if you're going to do that, lock your computer at all times so that somebody can't get onto your web browser and get into your accounts that way. Should only be downloading software from trusted sources. Now, this is more related to your personal computers. Here at the college, if you're going to download something, you should check with the help desk first, right? If one, that you should be even downloading that software. Two, if it's malicious or not. Or the college may already have accounts set up for you to use a particular type of software. So be careful with that. I mean, you may want to consider using a VPN, a virtual private network, when you're browsing the web, especially on public Wi-Fi, on your personal devices as well. And just be careful on websites that you go to now. We can, with so many different search engines and results that you can get, potentially someone has created a malicious web page that comes up in your search result. You click on it thinking it's legit because it is using HTTPS in the web address, but actually it's malicious. So stick to those known trusted websites that you've visited before and that you know belong to the actual company. For any incident escalation, questions, again, phishing emails, your antivirus goes off, you're not sure how to handle a certain type of data or send it or transmit it or even where to store it, check with the help desk first, either call them or shoot them an email. So play it safe, check with them or check with somebody first before information leaves. So staying secure at home. Something that this is just a good reminder and something that we should just continue to do is use antivirus, right, on our devices, whether it's our iPads, or not our iPads, our tablets, our phones, our laptops, desktops, whatever we may have, depending on the type of device out there, you can still get antivirus for it. So for some Apple devices now, it's just Apple has embedded antivirus in it, so you won't find antivirus software for, say, an iPhone, but you still can find antivirus for a Mac desktop, right? So something, again, we should already just have on, always be using it. Now, question for you both. The router that you have in your house, one, do you have a router in your house? Two, do you own that router, meaning you set up the router, or does it belong to the telecom company?
I don't know mine. Do you own yours?
So, so if you own, and this information here is if you own your own router, meaning you don't rent it from the telecom company. When you go to set up your router at home, if you bought one from off of Amazon or Best Buy or Target or wherever, things you want to keep in mind of what to do. One, update the firmware of the software of that router once you plug it in. Two, once you create the account for that router, change it from the default username and password because they'll come with a default username and password that people may be able to guess. Next, the level of security you should be using on your router is WPA2, or the encryption level. That is the highest level right now, or the best way to protect your information as it's being transmitted through your router. You can change the name of your network, right, so it doesn't read as the type of router that you have. So it doesn't just say Netgear or Linksys. You can also potentially hide the name of your network, so it's still broadcasting your network, but you can hide it so that people have to manually type it into their device to then be able to join it. It won't just show up when you turn on your Wi-Fi.
That would be the name of it?
Yes. Yep. And then you may also want to consider creating a secondary network for any guests that come to your home and want to use your Wi-Fi. So if you think about it, our router is the main hub for all this data flow. So we want to ensure that you're keeping that router as secure as you can to protect all the information that's being transmitted through your router these days. So not everybody has a firewall set up at their house. So we need to make sure that we have our router set up with our best security configurations that are out there and making sure it's staying updated. Now, Internet of Things device. Do either of you have a Internet of Things device at home? So one of these devices, an internet-connected TV, or a internet-connected thermostat, or Google Home, or Amazon Alexa, things like those, right? Those are Internet of Things devices. So as we add Internet of Things devices in our homes, there are other things we need to think about, right? Because now it's an internet-facing device that's potentially capturing information, storing information about us. One, they're not all created equal, right? So they can have varying levels of security, privacy built into them. When it comes to setting these up, similar to your router, change the default username and password, create a long and strong password, ensure that the device is updated with the latest software patches. Many times, if you can update the software, there's also a checkbox that says automatically update the software, so you don't have to think about doing it there. And when you connect them to your Wi-Fi network, you may want to have them on their own separate network as well, or separate Wi-Fi channels. So you may have different Wi-Fi channels at home, you may want to have these on the room. Why? Well, if these devices, for some reason, have a security hole in them, at least it may potentially limit the impact to other devices that are connected to it. So just something to consider when you're plugging these devices into your home. They are great to have in our home, but we need to just understand what are the potential risks out there to using these devices. Staying secure in public. So for you if you're going to be using your credit card and you're going to be purchasing groceries or going to get gas, right? Something to keep an eye out, especially if you're going to get gas or use an ATM somewhere, is there a skimmer device on that? What is a skimmer device? Well, it's a device that somebody has attached to the front of the credit card reader so that as you slide your credit card through, it picks up your credit card number and transmits it to somebody's computer, and now they've just stolen all your credit card information, right? So something that typically we see on gas pumps or ATM machines that are just sitting out in public. So what you can do usually is tug on the gas pump or look at it to make sure it's not been tampered with. I have a quick little video here of an individual, the gentleman in the black hat here. He is going to, here's a credit card machine. He's actually going to place a skimmer device on top of this credit card machine in broad daylight with people around. So just keep an eye on his hands and his actions because it happens very quick. Did you see him push it on the front of that? Yeah. So it happens really quick, right? He had his hands in his pockets, no one's looking, he's fidgeting, and he clips it on front, runs his hand down, so the next person in line there, potentially once they swipe their credit card through, if they didn't use the chip card reader, just had their credit card compromised or what have you. So this is an example here. This piece is a skimmer device placed on front of this ATM. This normally would not be here. Oops. This normally would not be here, and there would be a gap of space. Oh, why does it keep changing on me? There would be a gap of space here where you would slide your card. So next one here, the one on the left does not have a skimmer device on it. The one on the right does have a skimmer device. So that extra piece of plastic there, that's a skimmer device that somebody pushed on. So if you're at a gas pump, you can actually wiggle on that, and you could probably pull that right off. Why? They're not meant to be there permanently. They're meant to be there to capture a few credit card numbers, and then someone's going to detect it and pull it off, but at least they maybe gotten a half dozen credit card numbers that they now can use. So just something to consider. So if you're using an ATM or going to use one, stick to using one that's inside of inside a business rather than just out on the street, because there may not be any security around that ATM just on the street. There's no cameras, no one paying attention to it. If you are going to use a gas pump or something else, just take a look at that credit card machine before you swipe your card through it. And where possible, in this day and age, use a credit card versus your debit card. Why? If something happens to that credit card, at least it's the credit card company's money, right? Your debit card, now it's coming out of your own checking account, and now it's harder to recover that money potentially, or you're out of that money longer. So where possible, just use a credit card for any of your purchases, because it is again, not your money, and credit card companies have good monitoring for fraud in place. Talking about using public Wi-Fi, so if you're going to use public Wi-Fi, one, confirm the name of the Wi-Fi network to ensure that the network that you should be connecting to is the one that you are connected to. Sometimes, like, you can go to a hotel and all of a sudden there's a couple different Wi-Fi networks. Well, ask the person behind the desk, what's the name of the Wi-Fi network that I should connect to? It's very easily, potentially, for somebody to spin up a fake Wi-Fi network and have people connect to it, and then ask for, when the people go to connect to it, ask for personal information or say you need to download software to join the Wi-Fi network. If one of those two things happens, that should be a red flag right there. So you should not need to enter personal information or download any software to connect to a Wi-Fi network. Again, A virtual private network may be something you want to consider using. It's, again, a piece of software that you could download onto your phone or onto your computer, and it'll give you a encrypted connection while you're on public Wi-Fi. Social media. So a lot of people these days use social media. Do either of you use social media?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it is LinkedIn or Facebook or something else, the big thing with social media these days is what? It's privacy, right? How private, who can view my information, what's being done with my information, who is in my social network. So it's about locking down your account, knowing what privacy options are available to you on social media, and turning them on. And it's also just being smart about what you're posting. We're not posting pictures of your desk or your ID badge at any time. We're not posting personal information up there. We're not posting our email address or even our home address, even though that's more public information. But there are things up there that people post all the time that potentially, if someone got a hold of that information, could be used in some malicious way back against you, right? So it's just being, when it comes to social media, common sense, what should I post, who's in my social network, and then how have I secured my account? Did I turn on two-factor authentication? Am I using a long and strong password for my account? Things to consider. Securing your mobile devices. So things to think about are, hopefully, on your mobile device, on your phone or tablet, whatever you have some type of password or PIN, or you have the fingerprint reader turned on before to access your device, right? We don't want people just keeping their phones unlocked and just being able to swipe on the phone or hit the power button and have access to all the information on your phone. Updating your phone or your tablet is important, updating the software, and the same goes for your apps. They all are running on software that needs to get updated from time to time. So allow those updates to happen, don't just ignore them. Sometimes, yes, there are new software enhancements, but many times there's software patches as well as part of those updates. You also, if you're going to be selling your device or trading it in, make sure that you wipe it fully before you actually trade it in, and should never be sending personal information via text message, right? Sending pictures of your ID, your social security card, or credit card through email or through text message, something that should not be done. So minding your apps. So stick to downloading apps either from the Apple or Google store. Be on the lookout for fake apps. It's very easy potentially for somebody to create a fake app or a app that is malicious. Now Google and Apple, they vet apps before they make it onto those platforms. However, sometimes they don't catch them all. So be careful of just the apps that you download. And the big thing here, privacy alert, is what information are you storing in those apps or allowing those apps to have access to on your phone. So you can often look on, before you download the app, you can check the permissions. And the permissions are, well, what does this app want access to on your device? Many times it will say the permissions on this app will allow the app to have access to your camera, to your call logs, to your messages, to your calendar, and you can turn those permissions off now in many more cases. You used to be more limited to do that. Now you can turn off those permissions and the app still runs fine. But many of these companies want those permissions turned on so they can capture more information about you and then use it for marketing or sales research or whatever. So on your current apps you have on your phone, you may want to check what those permissions are and how they're currently adjusted. And then for any new apps, check what those permissions are. So we'll wrap up this session here. Hopefully after today, you'll think and behave differently about security, right? So there are, again, layers of security that we need to have in place. There's not just one thing that we can do. So we'll go over those key points again, just as a refresher. So security is everyone's responsibility, right? So if you hear somebody say here, well, I don't need to worry about security, that's IT's problem. Well, that right there should be a red flag, right? Everybody has a responsibility for security here. Securing your devices, updating them is key. Getting rid of documents in a secure manner is key, as we're still using paper documents in many places. Phishing, number 4 there, is probably the #1 way you'll be targeted by a cyber criminal. So ensure that you are watching out for phishing attacks. turning on two-factor authentication and using those long and strong passwords. Using public Wi-Fi, just be cautious. I won't say don't use public Wi-Fi, but just be careful of what Wi-Fi network you're connecting to and what you're doing on it. Stay current with the patching of your devices, those software updates, whether it is your laptops, your phones, your tablets, your routers, your Internet of Things devices. Just make sure that they're being updated from time to time or that you have them turned on automatically. And then finally, to help protect your identity and that information, you can consider freezing your credit and then placing any fraud alerts on any of your financial accounts. So something that I found very helpful that is setting up those fraud accounts on my credit card so you can set thresholds to get alerted on. So quite recently, a couple weeks ago, one of my credit cards got compromised, and the reason I found out was because I had a threshold of $200 or maybe even $100 for any online purchases. I get a text message. So I received a text message from the credit card company saying, there was an online purchase made for $100. I'm like, well, clearly I didn't make that purchase. Logged in to my credit card account and saw there were a number of fraudulent charges on there. Called the credit card company up and, they canceled the card and I'm not liable for those charges. But had I not known that happened, they could potentially have kept making purchases without my knowledge, and then that would have been more of a headache potentially to have to go back, or all of a sudden now they just maxed out my credit card and I didn't even know it. So just something good to have in place. Is it necessarily helping the level of security? No, but it's just helping me be aware of what's going on with my accounts. So with that, are there any questions? Sure.
Okay, I just have a couple.
Sure.
Well, sending emails for work.
Yep.
They have me put secure in my subject line. So is that safe?
So that depends on how email here is sent up. So, Bill, do you know if somebody puts secure in the subject line of their email, if it will encrypt that email?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's
So
safe
that,
to do.
it adds a layer of security, so now it encrypts that email. If you didn't have that in, now it's not encrypted. That being said, though, we should still be mindful of what we're sending outside of the college in email.
Yeah, I do that internally also.
Okay, yeah, so that's a good measure to take, but if we're going to be potentially attaching documents to that, we may also want to consider encrypting or password protecting those documents as well before you send those out. So like a PDF, you can actually embed a password into it, or create a password.
That's what I usually send in the email.
Yeah, so I would think that it does encrypt any attachments as well, but it doesn't necessarily mean it requires a password to open up the document. It just means in transit that password or that document is going to be encrypted. So another layer you could add is password protect that PDF that you create. Call the person and say, here's the password for that document as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
The only issue with that is if they respond to it, it's no longer encrypted.
Right.
It's only one way. So they have to, they're sending something back with secure information, secure information, they have to either have that same option on their system or find another way to do it.
Yeah. No, it's usually one way. Yeah, it's usually one way. Usually internally, it's one way. I'm sending like a bank statement to like Deb Zielinski or something, and so that they have their copy, but it has the account numbers on it. So Dave has me send it secure because it has the bank account numbers on it. Either that or I got to stamp them all out and stuff. So it's easier to send it secure. So. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And something else to consider too, if potentially you and that person have access to the same folder, instead of like, it's convenient to send emails through folder, or through documents through email, but if you both have access to the same folder directory, why not just upload it to the folder, and now it's not being sent through email, right? So people kind of sometimes just forget, oh yeah, they have access to this folder too, I'll just dump it there. But in your case, you may not have that access, or they may not have that
Yeah,
access.
they don't have access, because
So-
it's confidential.
Right,
Yeah,
so,
they don't have that access.
yeah, so you may be limited on that, but there may be cases where it's like, well, I'll put it in this folder and you can get it here.
Mhm. Now, the public Wi-Fi, this might be a kind of stupid question, but if you're on public Wi-Fi and you're using your, say your phone, can they only get access to what you're using or the whole phone?
It depends, right? So there could be scenarios where if you use public Wi-Fi and you didn't realize that you downloaded software onto your phone when you connected to that public Wi-Fi, well, now potentially your devices has been compromised, and then any websites that you go to, maybe then they're able to compromise that information as well. So it'd be, more sophisticated, but to answer your question, yes, it could not only impact accounts that you go to through, say, your web browser, it could potentially impact any data that's saved on your phone as well. So when using public Wi-Fi, it's just being mindful of, again, most public Wi-Fi, you can just, especially at a hotel, right, you just go to it, you just click connect, whatever, and you're all set. Or you have to put in your name and your room number or something like that. But if you're somewhere else and it says, oh, you can, to connect to this public Wi-Fi network, you can use your Google account. Well, that should be a red flag right there, because why would you need your Google credentials to log into a public Wi-Fi network?
And just one other quick question.
Sure.
Could you just touch a little bit more on that VPN?
So yeah, a VPN it's a virtual private network, and what it is, it's a piece of software that you can download onto, say, your phone, and you can turn it on when you're on public Wi-Fi. So to help ensure that you have a more secured connection over the internet, so to eliminate someone from eavesdropping on any of your activity, you can turn that VPN on to then add that encrypted layer, like kind of what you do for email. It adds that encryption to it so that somebody can't necessarily see your internet traffic or what that is. It also can be helpful too when you're traveling internationally. What some VPNs will allow you to do is select a different location. So there may be restrictions on what you can access based on that country, but you could technically change your VPN to say that you're coming from another country or you're based somewhere else to then allow you to actually access certain websites.
So is that what we use when we work from home? Is that a VPN?
Yes. When the Cisco one where you have to...
Yes, that's a VPN.
That's a VPN, but that's different though, because that's just giving you a secured connection straight into the college network.
Okay.
So it's different than how these VPNs are configured.
That's why I just knew of a VPN from that, so I was just curious.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's all I have.
Okay, well, good questions, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Nice presentation.
Thank you. Again, this will be posted at some point on the internet page. We'll have slides. What the also thing is, some of those bullet point, like main points, Peter and Bill were talking about pulling those slides out specifically, just to kind of have a smaller deck of best practices. So keep an eye out for that here in the future.
Yeah, should be in within the next few days.
Great. Good presentation. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for joining, and have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.